I've been accepting that my body is getting older and that I can't make everyone like me. Finally, at this age in Hollywood, where love often shines as beautifully but fleetingly as a soap bubble, Valerie Bertinelli is a moving example of this truth. As a famous TV star, she entered a relationship that seemed perfect, surrounded by fame and passionate feelings. But even though they were together for 20 years, their ending left many hearts hurting. Valerie Bertinelli's love story took place in two very different worlds: the order of TV and the chaos of rock and roll. What started out as a fiery passion slowly faded under the weight of fame's unspoken pressures and contrasting lifestyles. When her first relationship didn't make her happy, Valerie Bertinelli had to look for new loves in order to fill the void in her heart. But each new start ended in heartbreak, leaving her with deeper scars and more questions about what was real. Can a beautiful TV star find real happiness amidst the ups and downs of life? Or is love just a path she has to take to learn how to accept herself? Let's look into the touching and heartbreaking story of Valerie Bertinelli's marriage to Eddie Van Halen. Valerie Bertinelli, who became famous for her roles as Barbara and Barbara, started working in show business at a very young age and quickly rose to fame with her portrayal of Barbara, Valerie Cooper, in the hit sitcom One Day at a Time. With her beautiful looks, friendly smile, and natural acting skills, Valerie not only won over audiences' hearts, but also became a symbol of youth and hope in the 1970s and 1980s. While her career was in the spotlight, few could have predicted the rough patches in her personal life, starting with her fateful meeting with Eddie Van Halen at a concert during Van Halen's Invasion tour in 1980. Eddie, a rock star, was a fan of Valerie. Despite coming from two very different worlds, she was a famous TV star, and he was a symbol of rebellion and freedom. Eddie immediately stole Valerie's heart. They were drawn to each other and fell in love. Just 4 months into their relationship, Eddie proposed, and Valerie, who was only 20 years old at the time, said yes to a marriage that Hollywood and the rock world called perfect. Their wedding in 1981 was a media sensation, drawing fans and press. Valerie looked like a princess from a fairy tale, and Eddie played a prince with his guitar as his crown. The public's praise and high hopes painted a picture of happiness, but behind the scenes things were much more complicated. Valerie got married full of hope, thinking that love could overcome any problem. But what she found was not only the shine of fame, but also Eddie's constantly changing world. As a TV star, Valerie quickly saw how broken she was. In contrast, Eddie, who was a rock musician, was caught up in a whirlwind of partying, drinking, and drugs. Valerie once said that she felt like she was living two lives, one as a happy actress dedicated to her roles, and the other as a wife trying to fit into her husband's crazy world. She tried to help Eddie break free from his bad habits, but it didn't work for long. It became a mental load that wore her down. I couldn't keep playing, Valerie once said in an interview that everyone knew Eddie had started drinking and using drugs at a young age as part of rock culture during Van Halen's prime. For Eddie, parties weren't just for fun. They were an important part of his life. Valerie said that Eddie often went to endless parties with friends where drinking, drugs, and overindulgence were normal. At first, Valerie tried to accept it. They knew it was part of being a rock singer, but these habits started to bother them. Eddie wasn't just drinking for fun. He was heavily addicted and used alcohol to deal with stress and pressure. He also abused drugs, including cocaine, to stay awake during long tours and to write music. These habits not only hurt his health, but also changed Eddie's personality, making him hard to control and quick to anger. Valerie, who loved her husband very much, tried to help him get out of this dangerous cycle by encouraging Eddie to join a rehab program and consistently following through with her advice. Eddie wanted to change his life, but his addiction to drugs and alcohol was too strong. Valerie once said that she felt helpless, like she was fighting an invisible monster she couldn't control. When their son Wolfgang was born in 1991, it gave Valerie and Eddie new hope for their marriage. Valerie thought that becoming a father would inspire Eddie to change and become a family man, but Eddie still couldn't give up his old ways, even after therapy sessions and promises to change. Eddie continued to drink and smoke cigarettes, and Valerie saw him have surgery to remove part of his tongue because of cancer. He still couldn't stop smoking, which she called an inability to save himself habit. But lifestyle differences weren't the only problem. Personal conflicts and a lack of loyalty from both sides destroyed the love they wanted to share. During their marriage, Valerie and Eddie had affairs, which broke their trust in each other. Bertinelli freely admitted to having an affair while married to Eddie Van Halen. In her memoir, Enough Already, Learning to Love the Way I Am Today, she wrote about her affair with Eddie in the late 1980 SS. Valerie said that her marriage to Eddie was under a lot of stress at the time because of their different lifestyles and growing emotional distance. This made Valerie feel lonely and vulnerable, and in a weak moment, she had an affair with a man whose identity she did not reveal. She chose not to say, but she knew that this mistake was one of the reasons she felt guilty for a long time, especially since she knew Eddie had also been unfaithful during their marriage. Valerie admitted that neither of them was perfect and that they had made big mistakes, but those mistakes showed how deeply their marriage was broken. Valerie stressed that she wasn't trying to defend her actions, but was just being honest when she thought back on a hard time in her life. This event showed how deeply their marriage was broken, was hurt by things like fame or bad habits, but also by emotional wounds and a lack of connection on both sides. Valerie tried to save the marriage, but there was nothing left to hold on to. She finally accepted the harsh truth that love isn't always enough. In 2001, they decided to split up, and in 2007, they got divorced, ending their over 20-year relationship. Even though they were no longer together, Valerie and Eddie kept up a good relationship for the sake of Eddie had a lot of respect for Valerie because she was there for him when things got tough. When Eddie died in 2020 from lung cancer, Valerie wrote an emotional tribute. 40 years ago, my life changed forever when I met you. You brought the greatest light into my life and the life of our son. The tribute got mixed reactions, though, and some people said she was just trying to get attention, which hurt Valerie deeply. Valerie and Eddie's love story was a symphony of highs and lows. Their love was passionate, but also filled with heartache. It was a journey that brought both happiness and lessons about sacrifice and the limits of endurance. But was Valerie right to get married, or was she wrong to think that love could overcome everything? What do you think of her choice? Share your thoughts and let us know if you believe love can truly bridge such deep rifts. After more than 2 troubled decades with Eddie Van Halen, Valerie Bertinelli thought she had finally found peace when she met Tom Veitel in 2004. Tom was a successful businessman in finance and media, known for being practical, decisive, and private. In stark contrast to Eddie, Tom brought Valerie a sense of stability and security, which she desperately needed after the chaos of her previous years. 6 years after they met, Valerie and Tom got married in a small ceremony. The wedding ceremony in 2011 wasn't just a fresh start for her, it was also a journey of emotional healing. Valerie freely admitted that Tom helped her regain the confidence she had lost. He not only encouraged her to pursue her career, but also helped her with her writing and personal projects. Valerie called Tom her safe place, a man who listened and understood her in a way that Eddie never did. In Valerie's eyes, Tom represented practicality and stability, 2 things she had never experienced in her previous marriage but sometimes needed. Tom Valley was a practical and decisive man who valued long-term stability. He had been married before and was raising children from his previous relationship, so he had a more conservative view on relationships. Valerie, on the other hand, was an artist who longed for freedom and didn't like being limited by other people's expectations. This fundamental difference caused tension in their marriage, even though they both worked hard to work out their differences. As Valerie moved into a new phase of her life, she wanted to focus on her career and build an independent life. She felt like she was starting a new chapter where personal freedom was more important than anything else. Tom, on the other hand, wanted Valerie to spend more time with their relationship and family. Valerie freely admitted that she felt suffocated by Tom's expectations of her, while she wanted to live life on her own terms within their marriage. They had different lifestyles and different ideas about their roles in the relationship. For example, Valerie said that Tom wanted her to be involved in big family decisions, but she wanted to stay independent. For Valerie, marriage wasn't everything, but for Tom, it was. These different expectations made the gap between them even bigger, and their attempts to get back together only showed how different they were. They divorced in 2021, leaving behind more than just emotional scars, but also intense legal battles. Even though Valerie and Tom had signed a prenuptial agreement, Tom still wanted financial support after the divorce, including a $50,000 monthly allowance and $200,000 in legal fees. Valerie said it was one of the hardest times of her life, dealing with financial stress while healing from emotional wounds. Many people were surprised by the legal battle, especially since they thought Valerie and Tom were a mature couple who didn't deal with the drama that comes with Hollywood. The couple had very different lifestyles and personal values, which made the marriage unsustainable. Valerie was honest and said that while she had hoped Tom would be her last safe haven, reality taught her a different lesson. Valerie said that her second marriage taught her how important it is to set personal boundaries and not get caught up in other people's expectations. Loving someone else is important, but loving yourself is essential, she said in an interview after the divorce. She decided not to blame anyone for her decision, but to see the relationship as a journey that helped her learn more about herself. She also thought about how walking away from a relationship isn't always a failure, but a victory for yourself. However, not everyone agreed with her. Some said Valerie hadn't tried hard enough to save the marriage, especially after what Tom had done for her in their early years together. Others praised Valerie's strength and courage to put her own happiness above all else. Valerie's story brings up an important question: is choosing personal freedom over preserving a marriage the right choice? What do you think of Valerie Bertinelli's choice? Share your thoughts and join the discussion on this deeply emotional story, relationship with Mike Gooden. After 2 marriages that were full of lessons and deep heartache, Valerie Bertinelli entered 2023 with a lighter, more carefree mindset. She no longer had high hopes for love or sought a forever relationship. Instead, she just wanted to be with someone she liked. In this state of mind, she met Mike Gooden, a man 10 years younger than her, whose kindness and warmth made her feel loved in a way she hadn't felt before. Mike wasn't famous or glamorous in the entertainment world, but his simplicity brought something new to Valerie's life. Valerie said that Mike could make her laugh even when she was working hard on a show and was feeling worn out. Mike sent Valerie a box of homemade cookies with a note that said, "For the biggest star in my life." That kind of simple but genuine care touched her heart in a way that none of her other relationships had. Not long after they started dating, Valerie and Mike made their relationship public. Their first public appearance together was at the Daytime Emmy Awards, where Valerie was nominated for her cooking show. She wore an elegant dress and her eyes were beaming with happiness as she stood next to Mike, who was beaming with pride in their presence. After years of hiding behind emotional walls, Valerie now seemed more open than ever. She didn't shy away from cameras or public opinion, and with Mike, she felt safe enough to love naturally and freely. However, as with her other relationships, reality soon presented problems that were hard to solve. Valerie lived in Los Angeles, where she was focused on her career and rebuilding her life, while Mike lived in another city, where his work and personal life were separate. Geographical distance wasn't just a matter of travel time. It was also a big emotional barrier. Valerie, who was used to being close in relationships, found it hard to bridge the gap when Mike couldn't spend enough time with her. Video calls and text messages couldn't make up for the lack of shared moments during important milestones. The challenges of long-distance love went beyond just physical distance. After her failed marriages, Valerie was more focused on Mike wanted a deeper, more committed relationship, while Valerie wanted personal freedom and happiness. Valerie once said that even though they tried to stay in touch, their different life goals made it impossible for them to align. "I feel like we're standing on 2 completely different paths," she said in an interview. Their relationship started to fall apart when Mike's sincere efforts and expectations weren't met. Mike couldn't understand why Valerie wasn't ready to take the next step towards safety. Getting too attached to Mike would force her back into the limits she had worked so hard to escape. She realized that even though she loved Mike, their relationship didn't fit with the path she was on. After 4 months of going public, Valerie and Mike decided to break up. They didn't do it because of major disagreements or betrayal, but because they both knew they couldn't continue moving forward together. Valerie couldn't hide her sadness at ending things with someone she truly cared about. But this, Valerie shared, "I've come to understand that joy and peace must come from within, not from someone else." This statement showed not only her personal growth, but also an important lesson she had learned from her past heartbreaks. Valerie's relationship with Mike wasn't a failure. It was a reminder that she could still love and be loved without giving up her freedom. Even though it was short, Valerie's relationship with Mike gave her memorable moments, including soft conversations, warm embraces, and even simple dinners. Valerie understood that love isn't always the goal, but rather a stop along the way to learning how to love oneself more deeply. However, not everyone agreed with how Valerie handled the relationship. Some praised her for being honest and brave, while others said she put personal freedom ahead of love. Some even said that Valerie had become too independent to be in a long-term relationship after going through so much pain. What do you think is the truth? Is Valerie shutting herself off from the chance of true happiness by putting herself before love? Share your thoughts and join the conversation about this touching story. Valerie Bertinelli's relationships taught her important lessons about love and about herself. From Eddie Van Halen, she learned that love, no matter how strong, isn't always enough to change someone. She did everything she could to save their marriage, but in the end, she had to let go. Valerie learned that other people's expectations shouldn't be a burden during her second marriage, which taught her how to set personal boundaries and protect herself from unreasonable demands. During her time with Mike Goodness, Valerie learned the value of self-love and stopped letting love define her worth. She also realized that solitude wasn't something to fear, but a part of her journey to find peace within herself. What makes Valerie unique isn't just how she loves, but how she lives her life. Valerie refused to let pain dim her light after each heartbreak. Instead, she turned it into motivation to live a better and more authentic life. For Valerie, every failure was a step forward that brought her closer to understanding and appreciating who she really is. Valerie Bertinelli is not only a shining TV star, but also a symbol of strength and resilience through the ups and downs of life. She has shown that love, whether it brings sweet moments or aching sorrow, shapes who we are. For Valerie, every step, every choice, letting go or starting something new, has been a big part of Valerie's journey to growth. Her story is a reminder that holding on isn't always the best way to be happy. Sometimes letting go is the only way to be free. It's a journey of rediscovering oneself through loss, where she learns to love herself and appreciate life. What do you think of Valerie's way of dealing with the challenges of love? Do you agree with her choices, or would you have made a different choice? Share your thoughts in the comment below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to keep reading touching stories about Hollywood legends.